when you had the coupon. I'm not sure if you don't have the coupon, maybe they're 15, I don't know. Now my goal today is, because it's a rainy day, is to take care of all chores and things I have around the house, and I want to buff out the parts we made for the MT-09 and the 650R. Those parts have been drying, a carbon fiber, the two-part urethane that's on them, and they should be ready to buff today. Now these side pieces that I made for the 650R, they buffed out beautifully, of course. They're painted, they're not clear, but they are just some of the parts that are already on our channel. If you're interested in making carbon fiber parts, complex carbon fiber parts, or anything actually to do with carbon fiber, because learning about carbon fiber is building blocks. Once you learn how to lay up the material, you learn how to finish it, you learn how to make molds. It's a building block thing, and to be honest, it's not that difficult, but it's a lot of labor. And one of the hardest things on carbon fiber, when you make the carbon fiber yourself and you lay it up, is getting rid of the mold release agent and dealing with the fish eyes. And sometimes you have no fish eyes at all, sometimes you have just a few, but you still have to be prepared to deal with any fish eyes that are in that part. And it's one reason why I like to buff out all my painted parts and the finish that I put on the carbon fiber parts. When you're going to do a final buffing, usually it lets you eliminate every single one of the fish eyes. I always use this for an example. This part here I made, and I had not a single fish eye in the whole part. It's absolutely perfect. When I made this part, it was a little nightmare. It was loaded with fish eyes. When I made these, and right now, yeah, I think you can buy them, but you can't buy them in twill. You buy them in the tight weave carbon fiber. These are twill. Just a little bit different. I think just a little bit nicer. But you still have to always do the final finish, and that's what I'm going to try to show on this video, is the absolute final finish needs to be sanded and buffed. And if you don't do that, you're almost never going to have that quality of finish. It's just not going to happen. And I go back to when there was somebody up at our meetups, looked at my MT-09 and said, hey, I got an MT-09 and mine doesn't look like yours. Mine didn't come that way, and he was right. We buffed out the wheels, we buffed out the exhaust system, and there's a lot more. We got these little parts up here that have a really nice finish on them. So what I'm saying is it's a lot of little details, and it's not difficult to do, but keep that thing in mind. It is a lot of labor. And now that the weather's getting colder, we're going to start planning out a dedicated day or even more to do that carburetor swap and get a test ride to see if we've made any improvement on the work that we're doing on the RD over the winter. Come on, fellas. Don't get greedy now. Now, a little sad story this morning when I got out to the pond. Before I fed the fish, I noticed that one of our original fish from 20 years ago, we've had the fish over 20 years, probably more like 22 or 23. One of the original matriarchs of the pond had passed away, and basically most of the fish here, or some of them, are ones she gave birth to. So she actually right now is sleeping in our garden. We always bury the fish in our garden. So it's a rainy day, and this is what we have to start dealing with on a regular basis, is cleaning up the leaves and minimizing the damage from, well, if we don't take care of these leaves, the yard starts to look like the back of road here. So I try to keep up with it. Oh, what a rainy day this is going to be. Now, we're going to get that carbon fiber buffed. And I don't know how much longer we have flowers to pick every day, but we still have a few flowers left in the garden. Or maybe we have a lot of flowers left in the garden. I don't know. Now, a couple of days ago, these are the parts we actually made the sheets of this. That's on one of the videos. And we put on the clear coats. Now, the clear coats are plenty dry. They're nice and solid now. You can always tell if you put your finger and press it in and it doesn't leave a real fingerprint. Probably it's pretty much ready to go here. Now, the first thing on this job, there's always, when you paint outside, there's always, you can see one right there, a little fisheye, little imperfection. what'll happen is around the bolts, it'll build up extra material around the edges. So the first thing I always want to do, even though the plate is going to cover a big part of this, I want to block sand, 2000 grit Indasa. I want to block sand the whole thing down. That's step one. The sandpaper we're going to use is 2000 grit. 2500 would be even better, but I just happen to be out of stock of it. 2000 grit will do the job. And we're going to try to use a soft block. There's an ordinary body shop soft block that you can buy for about $5 in any body shop supply. But the big thing is 2000 grit. Any rougher than that, and you'll just be buffing all day to get the scratches out. Okay, so what we have is a little pan with some soapy water, Dawn, a couple drops of Dawn, just enough to... The purpose of the soapy water is to preserve the sandpaper from getting clogged up with material, because the material is soft, and what will happen if you were to sand this dry, the sandpaper gets clogged up relatively quickly. So in this case, we have a sanding block, and this is going to take a few minutes, and we just want to get the whole part flat, and those little fish eyes, little imperfections that we have, we want to sand them out, hopefully, very quickly and easily. Now, when they're really, excuse me, when they're really, really deep, it requires a lot of work, but I try not to be tempted to use a rougher grit, because then you spend a whole lot of extra time, and I mean a lot of time sometimes, getting out the sanding scratches, where with 2000 grit, when we go to buff this with our product, 8065, once it's flat sanded, it comes up very, very easily. Now, I wanted to show, and I'd always do the first little one in real time. I know it gets boring to a lot of people, but just a rough idea of what this part has to look like. So I'm looking at it. Now I'll try to do this up on the camera, of course. Give me a little break here. This is flat. Let's see if we can get that to be flat. But you can see we still have little moon craters. Well, in this case, we're not going to see these. I'm more concerned with the edges. So I still need to sand some on the edge. And this one has a few, I call moon craters, fish eyes, whatever. There's almost no way to get around that unless you have a professional and you have access to millions of dollars worth of tooling and all fancy stuff. If you're doing this like a backyard mechanic like I am, this is the best way to do it. Now, since we're trying to share information that might be helpful, you notice I tore a piece of sandpaper. Let me just show this. I'm not sure I ever put this tip on video, but when you're going to use this block, and this is called a soft block, ordinary body shop supply house, I tear a pair of sandpaper, fold it, and tear it in half. What you're trying to do, of course, sandpaper is expensive. You're trying to maximize the use of it. So if you watch how this works, it's exactly the right shape for this. You would sand this way, and you wear out the edge. You don't wear out in the middle. You wear out the edge. Then you reverse it, and you have a new cutting edge. A new cutting edge. And a new cutting edge. And you've maximized the use of the sandpaper. Then, when you're all done, you can tear it in half this way, and you'll have actually two new edges. Because keep in mind what happens, and this is an important thing to understand. You don't wear out the sandpaper here. It wears out on the edge. So this is a good tip and a good way to maximize the amount of value you get for one sheet of sandpaper. And again, sandpaper over the years has gotten more and more expensive. And I always try to buy a sleeve of 100 sheets. That cuts the cost way down, as if you try to buy it. For sure, you never want to buy individual sheets. You're going to pay through the moon there. But anyway, this gives you all the extra thing. Now, the extra cutting edges. And now that I have these cutting edges, now I want to look for any spot that still has a little moon crater. And I call it a moon crater. And now I can concentrate with a newly cut edge. Again, I don't have to worry about the middle of this too much, even though I'm just doing it for my own, actually, it's my own pride in product making here. I don't know if that's the right word. But it's so important to get the part flat and not have any imperfections before you start buffing, because the buffing operation should go very, very quickly. This part of it, as I said out in the garage, can be labor intensive. And if you're not willing to spend the time, the result is going to speak for itself. And when you do it right, that part will stay buffed forever, and it'll require just every so often just one quick lick and a promise with a polishing, any kind of polish, even 8065, and it's just like it's brand new again. It's really, once you do this part of it, you're home free all. Now, as I'm sanding this, another useful tip is just to kiss the edge very softly, because on anything that's a mountaintop or a high spot, you will go through very, very quickly. But I do want to have that just touched, and I'll spend a little more time getting this part perfectly flat as I can get it. And it's just a matter of labor here. Now I'm coming down the home stretch of having this part flat sanded, and I'm paying particular attention to the edges, the parts you're going to see that lie outside the license plate. I'd like to get them as nice as possible. And this is the kind of thing, if you've got to be detail oriented and fussy, and when you do, in the end, boy is it worth it. And when you skip a step or you try to outsmart yourself, and I do that all the time, there's just no substitute for just toughing it out with the 2000 grit. That's what makes the buffing of this, it's going to go like butter. So all of the areas that we're going to see, not worried about the middle here, all the areas that we see, the actual picture frame that's going to go around the license plate, that is block flat sanded with 2000 grit, and that part is ready. So I just wanted to show them side by side, and so you would get some idea what each one of them look like. But that is ready for buffing. This is ready for sanding. So the next step on our project, obviously, and we'll do it off camera, is to turn this piece block sanded, just like this piece, just so that they're both ready for the 8065. One of the things I've noticed after doing this for many, many years, and I mean a lot of years. What year were you born? I might have been doing this for 20 years when you were born. But anyway, there's not the point here. The point is, anytime you have two parts, it seems like the second part goes a lot quicker. I don't know why that is. Maybe it's not even realistic. It's in your mind or something. But it seems like when you have two parts, the first one's a struggle, and the second one, it's like just a lot easier, a lot quicker, or whatever. And as almost always happens, the second part takes about, I don't know, a little bit less time than the first one. Not sure why that happens. Anyway, it's time. This is a good time, by the way, for a nice cup of coffee. Time for coffee. That's what makes this job go. And some hand-picked flowers, which we always have. Actually, the season of flowers hasn't ended yet, but it's coming. And the last few tomatoes, and once we get done with the farm, well, who knows how long it lasts. And this is one of the compounds that I really think is special for me. It works really well. 8065 for CR. And I've used this for many, many years with really good results. It works by hand, and you can use a buffer. And we'll try to show both ways. Okay, so once the part is totally flat, I want to have a relatively clean microfiber and the compound. Now, because we're at the end of this, coming up on the end of it, I want to shake it up, make sure I don't have anything settle out of it. I'm not sure if this is necessary or not, but it's just cheap insurance if it's not. A couple of things with this, and the Meguiar's polish is good, the Mother's polish. I just happen to like this. And I'm very fussy about doing this kind of stuff. Some people aren't, I get it. Actually, a lot of people like toothpaste. And toothpaste has a side benefit. You can even use it on your teeth. So what I wanted to show is we start with this. And it's just no matter how you do it, it really doesn't matter. I want to show one little spot in real time, how long it takes to come up. Because the preparation, it's all in the preparation with the sanding. Once it's flat sanded with 2000 or 2500, this part of it is nothing. You don't have to overdo it and use gallons of polish. You don't need a big elaborate buffer. If you have a buffer, that's fine, but it'll make it easier. In this case, sometimes it's harder to do it with a buffer because it's hard to hold a part. And I wanted to show, as I always do on my videos, I try to show one of the things at least in real time. Because what happens, I don't like when I look at a product and they show me about how quick they did something and there's 10 camera cuts. I want to see it in real life. I guess I'm just fussy, I don't know. Well, let's just show this one. And I guess we're coming up on having it. Pretty close anyway. And once you see it, you only really have to see it once. It would be self-explanatory. Do another stripe, another one, do this one. Or if you're using a buffer, do the whole thing. I like to do it, since we're going to see the edge of this, I want to get the edge perfect. What happens in the middle, it's going to be underneath a license plate. It won't even really matter. Let's see if I can get this up on a camera. You can see how quick that buffing operation takes. And once you see that, you only have to see that once. You can pretty much figure out the rest. So if it's possible that I could show this all at one lump, and doing things by hand, and it's because I've done so many model airplanes by hand that I kind of favor doing things, small delicate parts by hand. I hate sticking a big buffer on them and have them go flying across the room. Of course, the modern buffers, especially that little one from Harbor Freight, really handy to have when you're doing any kind of buffing. But you can still go back to the old school method that I've used so many years, just buffing them by hand. There's the final result, and I'll try to, let's see if I can get it. I'm not sure I can get it on the camera there, but when we take that out in the sun later and put it on the motorcycle, that's going to be real good, I think. Yeah, that really came out nice. And it'll look even better in the sun, because here we are under fluorescent lights which show every little mistake. The sun hides every mistake. Now the real test is, how long is it going to take to do the second part? Well, I'll do the second one with the buffer, do a little bit of it in real time, and you see if whichever appeals to you. But both ways work. So I wanted to show one part of course, doing this with a buffer. Let's see how long this is going to take, if anything. It's going to be quicker, but not by that much. And you always run the risk with some delicate parts that you can damage them. Or you can, with a buffer, you always have the problem that you may buff through an edge or a high spot. So a couple of things that'll help and make it easier is, if you're buffing a part that really is intricate, just be really careful. Try to use a new pad often, if not every time you do it. And let's just see how this comes up. Now the buffers are about, I think they were $12 when you had the coupon. I'm not sure if you don't have the coupon, maybe they're $15, I don't know. I don't know how long they last in normal use, because during the winter I use it almost every day. So maybe they don't last as long, I don't know. But you can buy the big heavy duty one, and all it'll do is your arms will be tired quicker. The little one works just as good. And I'd have to do a time study to see how much time I save. The result is pretty much going to be the same. But I like to show both in real time. I always figure if somebody's watching my channel, they really want to know how to do things. They're not doing it because they're bored or whatever. So let's just see if we got the result we're looking for. And you'll always get the result on the edge of the buffer, not the middle. Keep that in mind. Wherever the edge of the buffer is, that's where you're going to get the most. And in fact, this is an important thing to show. If you're buffing here, don't bother putting compound in the middle. You want to put the compound all around the edge. And you can see what's happened. We held it here, and look what's happened. It's buffed where the edge would be. And again, I don't know if, you got to hold it here. I don't know if we can really show, let me see if I can do it through the lens, but that's how quick that comes up. And some of the parts you can do without taking them off the motorcycle, and some you can't. Now, the only thing I would caution anybody about, if you're using a buffer on anything powder coating is very soft. It tends to just disappear with compound. Paint, you can always put more paint on. In this case, we have a lot of clear on here, so we can buff this over and over and over. If we had powder coated this, I'm still skeptical about those powder coated wheels, that someday I'm not going to go through and then I'll have to paint them. Okay, we're ready to go see how this is going to look out in the bright sunlight. I'm sure it's going to look great. So what's left now to do is our little installation. That won't take long, and we'll see how this looks. A little before and after. Boy, that looks so nice. I really think that's a nice little detail touch. I love the way that carbon fiber looks in the sun. Wow. A nice little detail touch. And very, very easy to do. And of course we don't have the plate for the MT09 yet, so, but I'm sure this will look better once we get that piece on. No, I think that looks just a little bit nicer, and as per Turbo Steve, that'll act a little bit like a fender there if we have to ride this in the rain, and obviously at some point in time we will. So this was definitely a little productive day. I'm just looking around, I'm thinking that's a nice little detail. I wish we would get the plate too. In my lifetime it would be nice. And we showed this whole process from making the material to buffing it out to the installation. Now, the carbon fiber work is just one of the things I enjoy about restoring motorcycles. Electrical, not so much. All of the custom features and details and polishing, I just think it makes a motorcycle. You make it your own. You customize it to be exactly what you want it to be. So I think this is a nice little addition to our MT09. We got a brand new tire on this. All we need now is a day to ride. So I don't want to end any video without thanking the healthcare workers. My God, thank you guys so much. We are in the fall of the year. The leaves are falling. The bikes are starting to come together. All the little changes I wanted to make. We still have a lot more to do before the real winter sets in. And the main thing is, whenever we get a riding day, we want to get some riding. Hope you enjoy sharing these videos. I enjoy making them, and thanks so much for watching. And we try to post up a new video almost every day. Now, interesting things that maybe a lot of people don't know. A lot of the things that I do, the painting, the polishing, came from my career in model aviation. And one of the things that came from it is working with carbon fiber. I've enjoyed it. I learned along with Dave Midgley and different people like Dick Hewitt, that Les Nemeth, that we all did experiments with carbon fiber, and we learned how to make model airplane parts, basically propellers and tune pipe exhausts. And I look at that information that I learned many, many years ago. That's been a building block that's allowed me to make a lot of these motorcycle parts that I've made. And it's been fun making them. I've enjoyed making them. I've enjoyed sharing it. I've enjoyed all the interactions with other modelers, people like John Pothier, and just, I don't want to leave anybody out, but everybody has contributed something into this. And along the way, I've been able to share a lot of it on the YouTube channel. I don't know, I got my first video camera in 1987. Now think about that. There's a lot of people I know watching this weren't born yet. And I started making model airplane videos, which morphed into how to build and how to design and how to paint model planes, how to fly them. I documented a lot of the world championships, national championships, and the Brodak fly-ins. I did a lot, and I learned a lot along the way. And at this point in my life, I'm 75 years old. My objective is to share it in a way that's fun, enjoyable to watch, enjoyable to share. And my philosophy of motorcycles is pretty much as it is with model planes. You build the model planes that entertain you. You buy and modify the motorcycles that you enjoy. Don't let a lot of other people influence you. And when you want to make custom stuff, make it yourself. Then it really is something special. And I hope I've helped promote that on my videos. So thanks for watching.